Jacked Up Review Show. It's a Jacked Up Review Show. Jacked Up Review Show. It's the Jacked Up Review Show.
Join us as we cover many an insane movie and numerous cult TV phenomenons. Are you ready to get jacked up? Are you with us? Then listen on.
It's a Jacked Up Review Show. It's a Jacked Up Review Show. Jacked Up Review Show. It's a Jacked Up Review Show. It's the Jacked Up Review Show. Jacked Up Review Show.
And welcome back. I got Emily's Men's House from What the Frick Live. How are you?
Oh, hey, Cam. I'm sorry it cut out there when you just now came on. I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on. Yes, What the Frick Live talk show every Friday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Manifest Network on Facebook.
Totally. And here we are once again just talking about the Shirley Jackson and Henry James inspired ghost haunting Netflix addictions. So, this is new to me. I did not know that this was your introduction. Both these shows in Midnight Mass were your introduction to Mike Flanagan, who had done other stuff like Gerald's Game, Hush, and Oculus.
He did Hush? Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, I didn't know he did Hush. I love Hush. That
you
terrified me, that isolated cabin, and she's
freaked out
deaf.
everyone. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I love him. He's become one of my favorite people. He really has. I'm gonna have to start looking up other films with him.
I was one of 3 people in a theater seeing the limited release that was Oculus. I was like, horror's coming back to life again. I've been so disappointed by all the over corporatized ones that just have, again, just such lame, teens getting hunted down and just serial killers with no depth or persona, just hacking people up. Is like, I think this is coming back in full gust.
I'm writing that down, so maybe I will end up watching that. I'm not that big of a horror fan when it comes to stuff like that, but I love,
especially the torture porn crap. It was just like, good God, if I want to see someone interrogate someone, just show me an FBI agent and interrogating a terrorist. That's all I need. I don't need people getting sawed up and then
water boredom is what.
Oh hell, I don't even want to see shit like that. I just want just a simple shoot in the leg.
How about clipping off their fingers? Like, I always thought that if I can't believe we're going to talk about this right now, but I always thought
there's some torture in some elements.
If anybody ever hurt my kid, I would put them in a chair. I would but I would cut off each finger. Just when I wanted to, felt like
You'd go to a different country.
Yeah, so that's torture to me. There's other things I've heard way darker and more sinister than that I would never think of.
Some of them are not much different than hazing at times, where you're like, yeah, someone up top signed off on this bullshit that you're having these mercs and covert ops guys do. It's like, jeez.
Well, they go beyond my realm of thinking, but I'm definitely going to have to watch Oculus then, because Mike Flanagan, like you mentioned, Midnight Mass, and I watched it straight through. That was a binge day for me, and the ending
He's so
on
organized. He put drama and mystery first, and then the horror elements are just, again, the freakish images,
Oh my gosh. And there's all kinds of hidden stuff in his things. He's kind of reminds me of Stanley Kubrick with The Shining.
Totally makes sense why he was asked to helm Dr. Sleep,
Yeah, Dr. Sleep, amazing. He understands
character first, and then he knows how to be kind of just naturally freaky, as opposed to jump scare,
Right. And I will say I was disappointed in Midnight Mass's ending, but it also left room there to think, okay, what's going to happen next? So I'm hoping there's going to be a continuance. But I hope that Mike Flanagan does that because Bly Manor sucked.
Well, and that's fine. We'll get to that because that one definitely had some jump scares and it didn't even feel like his typical progressions. But yeah, we'll get there in a bit. So, what about this? We've already talked about a ton about this before, but yeah, when you were getting into this, were you already kind of familiar with other stuff like, other versions of The Haunting and,
The Haunting of Hill House? I read the book many years ago. But it was titled something different. I cannot remember the name of it.
1959 Gothic novel, yeah.
And then obviously we have those movies from back in the day. Oh shoot, what's that guy? I should have looked this up before.
That. I'm just kidding.
Well, where they had the lab in the basement.
There's a bunch of those. So
hold on.
Are you talking about a specific movie?
Yeah.
Does this have a mad scientist?
Yeah, it is. It kind of reminded me a little bit of it. Hold on. I will tell you. Give me a moment here really quickly. I will find it. This came out in they had an older version of the movie in the 70s or something, and it came out in the 90s.
Oh, you're thinking of Amityville, probably.
No, not Amityville.
Not anything that junky. Okay, so you're thinking of probably The Haunting. But that doesn't have a
Haunting Hill Mansion. Gosh, what's that guy's name? I'm looking it up.
Was it Vincent Price?
Yeah, Vincent Price.
Okay, you're thinking of. Oh my God.
House on Haunted Hill.
House on Haunted Hill. Similar. Okay, all good.
That's it. So it was came out in late 50s, early 60s or something like that. Right. And then they did a remake back in my day, 90s or something.
Mm-hmm.
That's the movie. And so I always was going back to that movie when I was watching the Haunting of Hill House.
Gotcha. Totally different kind of movie. Yeah. This was based off The Haunting, as well as, which also had a remake in 99. But yeah.
But I will tell you this, both of those movies though still had secret meanings and secret
they were very cryptic, yeah.
Yeah. Innuendos back in the day, the House on Haunted Hill was probably one of the scariest haunted movies that I watched. Reminds me of Alfred Hitchcock days.
Back when it meant something versus anyone could do it.
But The Haunting of Hill House is the more modern, truly. I don't know how you felt if you watched the whole series, but I was on edge almost the whole entire time, even in the first episode, in the first 5 minutes of it.
Oh, yeah, I've seen this whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was definitely just relentless and we talked a bit about before how, with the tragic side of this, just showing how how ironic that one of the kids becomes a child psychologist. And meanwhile, it's just everyone's just getting hammered or on drugs, anything they can do, because if they spend time with each other, they're instantly reminded of their trauma. So yeah,
well, it's the mental health spin on it. That is absolutely true. I mean, that you build walls. When you go through those things.
Other movies like The Exaggerated or not do it justice to where you're like, okay, and no one's behaving like they probably would in any kind of plausibility. So Well, and here you do get some plausibility because you're just okay, but they're actually trying to show all the barriers, all the other obstacles that you put around you just so you don't have to, have a come to Jesus moment with this.
Well, it just shows you to prove that if you leave your trauma, especially your childhood trauma, behind, and you don't attend to it or get therapy or get healing, it just keeps going.
Totally.
And that's why I'm surprised with Bly Manor, because Bly Manor was such a letdown to me, and we'll get more into that here in a few moments if you want to. But
go for it.
I really was hoping that The Haunting of Hill House would actually do series or some episodes of each character and their personal growth or their personal, not just with Nell, Nell, the bent neck lady and all that stuff. I was really hoping to see more detailed experiences or things, or even just teenage years. We see these children, and what the oldest was probably, I'd say my son's age, 12. So what happened after they left The Haunting of Hill House? What happened to them? Did they go to high school? They could have done so much more with this than come out with Bly Manor.
Oh, yeah, no one. It kind of stunk because they didn't announce right away that it had nothing to do with it, and then when they did, it was just like, well, totally different kind of style. He kind of gave totally different kinds of directors and writers to deal with this, so each of them had a different kind of spin each episode, but so different.
Was he just busy with Midnight Mass, you think?
It's a very good question. I think he just said, I don't want to lead the pack, but he could have maybe picked just one other different director to do it, versus multiple different ones. Because I get that some people like different. This was too different to where it wasn't even diverse. It was just annoying.
That's true.
And
I agree with you.
Again, disclaimer, I'm not a big fan of any of these other Henry James inspired stuff like The Others or The Turning. So I just wasn't the right audience, but I just don't do slow. I do not. Well,
I like The Others, but I will tell you why I like The Others is because I know Virginia Woolf and her short stories and her writing technique. And I
get it. It was a way more stylish kind of take on it, and I get it. It's just
and the spin on it was and the secret meanings and the hidden stuff that was going on. It was literally you were sucked into a world that was a fake world or a haunted world, and then all of a sudden spun into reality and back out. I like that in and out of things like that when it's organized. But I do like that. But I did not like Bly Manor. The in and out part in Bly Manor was so confusing to me. I couldn't stay on track. And to be honest, to prepare for tonight, I spoke with you before. I listened to The Haunting of Hill House. I say listen because I was ill. I couldn't watch, but I listened. And then to go into Bly Manor, I was listening to it and I fell asleep a few times with Bly Manor, but I also
rewatches. Yeah.
Well, I also, when I was watching Bly Manor the first time, there was like episode 5 and 6. It took me several days to get through because I kept falling asleep.
Yeah. I don't go to sleep from any of these, but I mean, boy, howdy. I mean, time is precious. And I just don't tolerate any stuff like this where it's just like, take your time. I'm like, no, don't waste your time.
With The Haunting of Hill House, what's so intriguing with it, though, it's like they always had some background imagery or ghosts in the background. I think at one time, I read several years ago or something, they had like 30 separate ghosts in the background. The one the one that I saw that piqued my interest the most, and it was the only one I saw during the whole movie that was in the background, was when they were running down the steps at the end, when he grabs his kid. What's the oldest kid's name? I'm terrible with names, everybody, but
anyway, yes, the older kid, yes.
The older kid, and he's like, close your eyes, close your eyes. Now you see all those ghosts and stuff upstairs, but when he puts him down and they run down the steps, you will see a man standing on the right-hand side of that stairwell or that staircase, and he is spooky AF. Like, it creeped me out. I stopped and I went back to look. I'm like, did I just see that? So then that got me interested in what was this, 2018 when this came out? So I watched the whole series, and then I go back and I'm watching clips and pieces of that series to see what I can see in the background. Because there's tons of other stuff going on that you don't pay attention to. I love it. I love it.
Well, and it's the best kind of Easter egg. It's not getting too cute for your own good. It's not just having a random like homage that doesn't even move the story forward. It's like, no, they're doing their best because they know people are going to rewatch stuff like this, because it's good, and then to actually go a step further and then just showcase all these other Easter eggs that are actually legit creepy. Some people have even freaked out just seeing some of the reflections in the mirror and other stuff like that, So, yeah, it's
well, and also too, what's ironic with the Hill House, really quickly, the big storm that took place during those episodes. What was that episode? I can't remember. If it was like 3 or 4 where all the glass broke and all that stuff.
Yes.
Okay. And going back and thinking about mental health, it was like now when I re-listened to it this past week, there's actually, to me, there's 2 storms. There's that exterior storm and then that internal storm that keeps going. And so there's a lot of symbolism, I think, with the haunting of Hill House. Maybe it's more than Bly Manor, or maybe I need to really truly try to listen to Bly Manor and not fall asleep. But it keeps you on your toes. I just know that the haunting of Hill House, it kept me on my toes, and then it has me thinking.
As a disclaimer, she's recouping, ladies and gents, so she can.
Oh, I am, but I am recouping from COVID and shingles, diagnosed with both. COVID did nothing. I didn't even have congestion. I was surprised it showed a positive. I had not one symptom.
My brother works at the Rangers, and he'll constantly. It is kind of like bacteria where it will just jump off of you, and then that's why you just constantly get tested. But it sucks.
Well, I finally I did get a negative test now, but when I was saying I listened to Hill House is because I had shingles. It was on the face, and I was not allowed to watch any kind of computer screen or TV, so I had to lay there. So I turned Netflix on and just listened to the haunting of Hill House. But even sitting there with ice pack on my face, my eyes closed, listening to it, it had a whole other meaning. That's why I was like talking about like 2 different storms, because watching it, you're distracted, but when you sit and listen to it, you really hear the mental health part of it. Schizophrenia, anxiety, generalized anxiety disorder. I mean, paranoia. It was a lot. A lot of these people too that faces this mental health. They have insomnia. They can't sleep. So a lot of the things that took place did happen at nighttime, not just because it's haunted, but that's when the enemy attacks the most for mental health.
Yes. So, when you're vulnerable.
So. Right. And it also, even if you are dreaming, a lot of your dreams, like I have generalized anxiety disorder. So I have reoccurring dreams too of tornadoes since I was a child, and I write down these dreams and how many tornadoes are in the dream and what's going on and stuff. But you're even attacked in your dreams too. So.
And then you can't discern what's real and what's not. What's just a bad dream that you think is real. And I know what you mean. It sucks, but
so I'm thankful. I was sick actually, and I laid there and with my eyes closed and just listened to the drama or the episodes rather than just watch, because you get a totally different outcome or thought-provoking patterns when you're not sitting and watching. So it's wonderful either way.
Totally.
Either way, it's one. I really enjoy it, and I hardly ever watch anything twice. So I watched bits and pieces of it the second time to go back in and look for those ghosts, and then to sit and listen to it all. It's fantastic. Kind of like.
Totally.
Well, he did Dr. Sleep, so we were talking about Stanley Kubrick earlier. I said he reminds me of a lot of The Shining and Clockwork Orange and all this different hidden meanings behind stuff. Very calculated, there's points to all of it, and it's genius to me, and that's what I love. It keeps you wrapped in its different dimensions of looking at it. Okay. Sorry, I kind of went on a little tailspin there.
I think you summed it up perfectly, because more or less, I mean, that's kind of what's just lacking in a lot of movies and shows today. There's just no reason for you to go back. Once you know the plot twist, everything else can get boring or doesn't have as much rewatchability after that. And just really just be very gentle about how you sum up the characters' dilemmas, and just utter material that is affecting them, that's great, because so many other people will not try to go the extra mile to even sum up why said thing is being a predicament.
Yeah, I agree with that. And then the lives of each child in this, you have a funeral director, and then you have a psychiatrist, psychologist, or whatever out of this trauma. Like, that's what I was talking about. Bly Manor has nothing to do with the Haunting of Hill House, and I was kind of looking forward to maybe some spin-offs of the Haunting of Hill House.
I had seen The Turning, and that was just a very rough sit, and this one was just even more just like, imagine if all the supporting housekeepers and everything were kind of telling stories. And I know some people like haunted, telling campfire stories, but me personally, I just don't find it very rewarding for the narrative. I feel like that just is a very scattershot way of doing it. I think I just prefer stuff straight up and then just clouding it in mystery to keep people coming back. And again, give me my scares, give me my gore if you need it, but don't. I also, just every episode began and ended so differently to where it was just like, that's taking me even more out of it. It's just convoluting it all the more and making me forcing me to lose interest. It's kind of like how I was with all these superhero movies. I was not a fan of WandaVision, for instance. I was just like, this is too different, this is too over the top, and it's just, I'm not going to spend time figuring it out. I already hate what I see, and nothing will make me enjoy this show. So, yeah.
Well, Henry Thomas, which I absolutely adore and love, from E.T. back in my day.
Yeah, he's in both of these.
Yeah, he's in both of them, but he gets the kids out. The mother obviously has
in Hill House, yes.
Yes, in Hill House. So the mother
he doesn't do much in Bly Manor except
no, he doesn't. He just pops in every once in a while. He's part of it, but he did. I love him because he's mysterious in this, and
who would have thought he'd be played by Timothy Hutton, another 80s heartthrob.
That's true, but. I always wonder, like, he gets all these kids out, where they go? Where are they going? What school they going to? What happened after that? Like, I don't know. I just feel like this could have been the sequel to it, or just a different series could have gone for a very long time and could have been successful in many ways if they kept that same pattern or style. Yes,
I'm fine with people being diverse and trying different stuff, but yeah, the Henry James style does not work for me. I do not do period pieces. I don't.
Yeah, he didn't work for me either. But I don't know. There was just like, what happened? Where are they now? How did they go back to school? How did they overcome their mom? Did the mom show up in their dreams? Did the mom haunt their house? Like, I'm just like, why did she end up being a funeral director? Why is he doing a psychiatry?
You could have gone for an Omen or Hellraiser touch. I would have rather that than all this other stuff. Maybe a Twilight Zone type anthology where there's like something different each episode instead of, because even at 9 episodes,
Twilight would have been.
Oof! You and your vampires. I'm sorry, I don't do sparkles.
No. I'm sorry. Twilight Zone.
Yes,
is what I'm talking about. Not Twilight the movie. No, and by the way, those books are way better than the movies, and that's not how I had Edward at all, sparkling in the light. So,
but like you say, yes, it's some anthology because it was long, even at 9 episodes. It's like, this should be 4 or 5, not 9.
The Haunting of Hill House?
No, not Hill House. Bly Manor.
Oh, Bly Manor. Oh, yeah.
Hill House went for more of a just countryside, growing up.
That's what I'm talking about. Hill House spinoff rather than Bly Manor, because Bly Manor was, I hate to say it, but it was, oh my gosh, you cannot build a masterpiece and then follow up with Bly Manor. You just can't. Because it was so terrible in the back and forth. And is this reality? Is this not? Was not a smooth transition as The Haunting of Hill House.
First time we see the guy, in Bly Manor, he's a ghost. And like, well, now that takes away suspense. It would have been way more effective had we had to determine if he is real or not, or a figment of someone's imagination. It's like, you let the cat out of the bag, there really isn't any suspense left. So.
Yeah, well, it was very drawn out. It was very boring. The Haunting of Hill House, I felt like I was on edge the whole time. The Bly Manor was like, eh.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly, I'm just watching Bly Manor because I watched The Haunting of Hill House, and so I can just say I watched it.
It's how I end up with every bad Netflix movie. Is like, it's on, so I can just bitch slap it later on my blog, you know? Oh.
I love the haunting aspect, though, because it does open up a whole universe that's actually a little bit more realistic in a haunting than
Correct.
what you would normally think a haunting truly is. So, or what's portrayed on modern day TV or all these ghost shows.
Yeah. Celebrity ghost stories. They were not all paid or told to say what's on the screen.
My name is Zach Bagans.
I have crazier hair than the Ancient Aliens guy.
I think what makes it so interesting, too, with these is that there's a real true connection with grief and loss, you know? So, in both.
The heart
in both.
Versus the content, you know?
Right. So there's a connection, even with Bly Manor, even though it was absolutely terrible, there was still a connection there.
It was worth watching. And then, by episode 5, I was like, I'm done. I'm just going to struggle to get through the rest of this schlock. So.
Yeah, I think I fell asleep at 4 or 5 or 5 and 6. It took me a couple times to watch that with Bly Manor. But Haunting of Hill House, I went through that in one day. I told everybody to watch it. Yeah, told everybody to watch it. Like, it was just Bly Manor was just a very sad continuance, or it wasn't really a continuance. It had nothing to do with Haunting Hill, but just
spiritual sequel.
Yeah. And also, too, with a little bit of The Haunting of Hill House, it kind of had that Agatha Christie kind of spin to it, like the flowers in the attic and all that kind of stuff.
Then there were none, yeah.
Yeah, so it kind of reminded me of that. And growing up, I read a lot of Agatha Christie and watched their movies growing up, so it kind of did a little bit with that too. So it was
it's even poetic, I guess you could say, in an Edgar Allan Poe kind of way, where he's like,
oh, I love it, Edgar Allan Poe. But yeah, it is poetic. And then it makes you think, whatever happened to those kids? Whatever happened? Did they go to school? They could have gone.
His logic was the minute they have it figured out is when the story ends. Or to do any more, just seeing them suffer would just kind of be just repetitive after a while.
That's possibly true, but it left me with the sense of like, but I'm a paranormal investigator, so it left me with the sense like ghosts are everywhere. Did these ghosts follow them? I want to know what happened to them. By golly, did they go to middle school? Did they go to high school? What happened to these kids?
Yeah, it was probably a blur, just like all our school encounters. I don't know.
Psychological trauma. Like,
they probably didn't go to school after a while. They played hooky.
Well, you have a lot of doppelganger activity going on here. Like, did they see the broke neck lady? Like, she talks about her coming back. Remember, she calls her father.
Yes, she does.
And so what happened during those really, because Nell was a little small child when all this, sorry, I'm getting really passionate right now because I kind of lived, not that there was a broke neck lady, but I grew up in a haunted house. So what happened with her from that mansion and the broke neck lady? What made it? Did she have so much therapy? She blocked it out because trauma does that. You block that out and you make up stories that act like it doesn't happen. So what happened? What made her over? Then all of a sudden the broke neck lady's back. Like, I want to know what, like,
I want to see her continually taunt everyone. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know. I don't know where you would even go from there without it just being just too much. But I know what you
questions the mom haunts the father,
But it is an awesome show if it leaves you wanting more, though, in all fairness.
It is. And then when, they're older and everything, the mother comes back and I can't remember their character names right now. What was that?
The Cranes.
The Cranes, but Hugh Crane was his name, was it?
And Olivia or whatever, yeah.
Yeah. So she comes back and haunts him and talks to him and tells him and tries to direct him in what to do. Does she do that to her children at one time? Like, what's going on? Because as a mother, you know, if I'm reaching out to my husband, or
she's already got her depression that she's having to contend with, you know.
Yeah. So if
anything, the dad, you know, sacrificing himself was good because he technically kind of had driven the mother crazy with it. He's like, just watch over the kids, you know. I'm not giving any time to them until I get home.
Well,
Where's my dinner? You know?
Well, hold on. There's the mold that took place in that haunting of Hill House. The mold, the black mold, will cause psychological problems. That's scientifically proven. So they had tons of black mold in that home.
They didn't treat it. They just thought, dead animals, no big problem. We'll just, you know, have a...
Well, he opened it up in the basement and tried to relieve it, but it just grew even more once he opened it. It's kind of like when you have cancer and they're like, oh, you have one tumor, and they go in, and then all of a sudden that air hits that tumor and it metastasizes to other parts of your body.
This is correct. Yep. And you got to also think about what era it was in. You know, this is back when we were so neglecting. You know, we had all kinds of just, you know, we thought, oh, just a bunch of cereal and run around, you should be fine. It's just like, no, there's something, there's how you eat and how you exercise.
It was a lead paint era, okay? Lead paint. It was mold and lead paint in that house. I guarantee it. That caused psychosis and manic
all the other chemicals
episodes
that are in all kinds of. Still have not been treated in various other apartments and colleges and
yes. So, but the mother, as being a mother, you know, she reaches out and she physically haunts the father, okay, her husband. But wouldn't you think that she would try to come back and reach her children too at some point? So how did they end up kind of like
after she's deceased or before?
Yeah, after she's deceased, because
I don't know. I think. Much like how they portray a lot of spirits, what we've known about spirits in real life versus how they portray it in fiction, I think you could assume she's consumed by the dread of that house. You know, she can't escape it and she wants to get away from it, maybe.
Yeah, but see,
that's a theory.
Even when she's away, she haunts her husband. So did she have visits with her children?
So I guess her appearing even more frequently in their dreams wouldn't make any much of a difference. I mean, it's not like she basically, the minute she killed herself, she was released from all the pain she was suffering then.
But it's a generational curse because now
it
kills
is
herself too.
Correct. That is also true. So I think she's now the main ghost that's haunting them. And I mean, but it's also kind of undone when the dad sacrifices himself.
But wouldn't you want to know like what Nell starts showing up to all of her siblings and stuff? Like, this needs to go on. So, come on. Flanagan needs to step up and say, okay, Bly Manor was terrible in 2024. I'll give him a few years.
I think he should do what he's doing with all his other stuff, where he's already sprinkled some Easter eggs for Gerald's game and other material he's worked on into Midnight Mass. So I'm sure he'll find other ways to be very plentiful, to where he'll imply that most of the movies and shows he works on are all in the same universe.
Well, I mentioned it before, Stanley Kubrick and stuff. He has that same gift of drawing people in, keeping everything mysterious.
Totally. We're still talking about The Shine. We are still trying to see what kind of a Native American reservation it must have been, built over.
Well, not just that, just the missing pieces. Like, in one scene, you'll have a table and chair there. The next scene, and you know how picky he was. It wasn't there. Why? It was because I honestly think that I hate to say it. Oh my gosh, The Shining. Shelley Duvall was having manic episodes. She was having that. Honestly, I believe Jack Nicholson in that movie, as Jack, he was normal, to be honest. And I think that Shelley Duvall was having psychosis episodes.
Because Kubrick was terrorizing everybody, just doing long hours, telling them to get into character. So,
well, no, I'm just talking about as the writer or the movie.
Oh, as the character. Okay,
as the character, she was having psychosis episodes, and she was probably paranoid schizophrenic in many ways. And then they go to this place for that winter, and she was going crazy inside that home. And and I'm just sitting here just going off this. So I honestly think that The Shining is not a ghost story. I think it is a trauma, a mental health story.
Oh, hell, it's both. Because
it's both too, but it's delusional, which is also The Haunting of Hill House.
For sure.
So I love Flanagan. He might be the modern day Kubrick, and I'm gonna have to go in and watch Oculus and some of these other films he's done. He might be my all-time favorite for this time.
For sure.
Yeah.
So now that we've kind of just hammered this all to death, I gotta let you plug your show.
Okay, yes. My show is on Friday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Manifest Network, which is facebook.com/the Manifest Network. It is called What the Frick Live Talk Show. We're not doing interviews anymore. We're going to be talking like tomorrow night. We're going to be talking about gematria, which I don't know if you know what that is. It's the hidden code of
some Illuminati type stuff.
Yes, we're going to be talking about Travis Scott symbolism, the Mandela effect of the week, all kinds of stuff like that. We're also going to be having a Patreon account that is going to go in and going to be talking about more conspiracy topics that I don't get banned off of. That Patreon account's coming up soon. But also, I've had an opportunity, the Fashion News Lifestyle Network, the FNL Network. Look that up. I'm going to be on a talk show that is politically driven, and it will be starting in December, but it will be more like it's going to be similar to The View, but it's going to be a conservative point of view, and it will be on a mainstream TV network also in the near future. So Fashion News Lifestyle Network, the FNL Network, you can download the apps. They're on every kind of streaming software you can possibly imagine. And if
you want to talk conspiracies with her, you can hit her up.
Yes.
Social media.
And if you want to be a host on What the Frick Live Talk Show, you can message me. I'm kind of doing what you're doing, just having a variety of people on every week, and we just come together and talk.
We'll return after these messages.
Hey, feeling down? Feeling low? Not enough podcasts about movies in your life? Why not try?
They must be destroyed on sight.
The new Podcast Cure-All, sure to get you right with the world and on a path to better living. We have exploitation, we have Italian horror, we have zombies, we have slashers, we have crime films, we have spaghetti westerns, we even have sci-fi and sex comedies. So take a dose of...
They must be destroyed on sight.
As needed, and let the hosts... Lee Russell, Daniel Harper, Paul Romali, and the odd guest host cure what ails you.
Warning, may cause atrophy, African consumption, black fever, bone shave, chin cough, colic, cramp colic, dropsy of the brain, elephantitis, grocer's itch, jaundice, mania, miasma, mortification, palsy, Pott's disease, rheumatism, scurvy, St. Anthony's fire, summer complaint, and worm fit in some people. Consult a physician before listening.
Did you ever see a film at such a young age it left you traumatized with cinematic wounds? Necrophilia. It's a dead issue, man. Don't push it. Cinema Psyops is a weekly podcast documenting an ongoing experiment on the mind of an unwilling test subject.
No one should have to watch this movie.
Oh, no one should have to watch this?
No one should have to watch this movie.
Surprisingly, it's not a topic that a lot of people really want to tackle.
I'm shocked, prudes.
I know, really.
Right?
It's the next sexual frontier that no one wants to explore.
I am, in the most sincerest of senses, disappointed in you.
It takes a powerful goddess like Connie, jam her arm down the monster's throat and kill it. Oh, I'm still tripping out over that. Even as a kid, I was like, I gotta find a girl like that. Every week, I get a new look of disappointment that I never thought I could get out of her.
Unimaginable. At 12 years old, you should not be watching this movie.
Obviously.
At 13, you should not be. 14, you shouldn't be. I'm not entirely sure even 17-year-olds should be watching this.
Just because you're offended by something doesn't mean that you have the right to demand that it doesn't exist. Watching this film again, I had all of this like little nerd glee with everything that kept
little
popping
history
up.
doll popping up
absolutely.
at you.
So I totally loved this film.
Hey, I know why you couldn't see that. It's because your brain's warped from watching this shit at 12 years old.
Yeah, this is a rough movie. I told you ahead of time when we were getting ready to do it that it was.
How did you watch this shit at 12?
Because physical wounds heal, cinematic ones don't. Listen to Cinema Psyops.
Hey everybody, I'm Corey.
And I'm Zach, and we're the hosts of Podcasting After Dark, a cast dedicated to late-night horror and sci-fi of the 80s and 90s, often found on HBO and Cinemax.
You know, the movies your parents didn't want you watching as a kid. You can find us every other week on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, and Stitcher.
This is what you want.
This is what you get.
It's time, let's check our queue, baby. Pair it with a couple brews, baby. We love good movies. We love the bad ones too. So we watch them all and pass their lessons on to you. Oh yeah. Everything I learned from movies helps to make life a little bit groovy. With a one-liner plot holes and gratuitous movies. It's time to get busy with your friend Steve and Izzy at eilfm.podbean.com.
Welcome to Who Was She podcast. I am your host, Tara Jabari. After a decade working in documentaries, marketing, and all things digital media, I found that podcasting is a strong medium to share stories. After years of producing for others, I decided to start my own biographical podcast. Who Was She will focus on the life of a woman throughout Baha'i history. The first season is about Lydia Zamenhof. Lydia's story explores the subjects of the power of language and faith. Her father invented the universal language Esperanto, and she came from a Jewish family and became a Baha'i. She grew up during World War I and was killed during World War II in a concentration camp, despite heroic efforts to save her life. How can one person's life intersect with so many others, connect across borders, and inspire a biography which inspired this podcast? Over the next few weeks, I will share her story with you and the lives that were most affected by her and those who affected her life as well. They include her father, Ludwig Zamenhof, her spiritual mother, American journalist Martha Root, and the Baha'i German soldier Fritz Mako, who worked for the resistance undercover while having to serve the Nazi Party. I want to thank the author Wendy Heller and George Ronald Publishing for their blessing to let me use Heller's biography, Lydia, The Life of Lydia Zamenhof, Daughter of Esperanto, as a main and instrumental resource for this podcast. So please subscribe and learn about this amazing woman who traveled through 3 continents in an effort to bring unity through the power of language. You can also find more information on our Instagram, Facebook, and Pinterest at Who Was She Podcast. Music was composed and performed by Sam Red. I am your host, Tara Jabari. Join us next time as we begin our journey about Lydia Zamenhof.
Are you sick of the same old stale podcasts? Well, then join Vanessa and Darren as they dissect movies of all kinds. The 2 lifelong cinema lovers bring their favorites, curiosities, and first-time watches to the operating table and inject them with a healthy dose of snark. Then there's the waiting room, where they examine books and short stories. So just look for them on Apple Podcasts and where fine podcasts are available. They're part of the Legion Podcast Network. Follow them on Twitter at VD Clinic Pod. Join them on Facebook at facebook.com/groups/VD Clinic Pod, or email them at vdclinicpod@gmail.com. They're ready to cure what ails you. And still, they just might be a little contagious.
Hi there. It's Heather from the Watching Netflix Without You podcast. Did you know that there are over 1,200 Netflix original feature films and documentaries? And that number is only growing. So I've made it my mission to watch as many as I possibly can. Then, with a delightful guest or guests, disclaimer, more often than not my brother Ryan, we spend an episode rating, reviewing, and discussing a film at length. The first half of every episode is spoiler-free for those who haven't seen it yet. And in the second half, after a very clear spoiler warning, we dive into it. And that's really about it. You can listen to Watching Netflix Without You on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and more.
We now continue with our program.
Follow us on the web on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The podcast is available on Podbean, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor, Apple, and anywhere else podcasts are available. Feel free to review our show and leave comments on any of those sites. Thanks a million for listening.
It's a jacked up review show. It's a